The fire was not meant for humans. It was ancient, alive, and hungry, a living wall of flame created by alien science so advanced it looked like magic. Every being in the arena knew one truth: any human who entered that fire would die. Yet Elias Vaughn ran straight into it. The screams started the moment the shield collapsed. Thousands of alien nobles leapt to their feet as the ceremonial platform cracked, the blue-white flames surging upward like a beast finally unchained. The ritual had been meant to crown a princess, not burn her alive. High above the capital city of Aurelian Prime, the sky court filled with chaos, panic echoing through crystal towers and floating banners. Princess Lyra of the Solari Dominion stood frozen at the center of the platform, surrounded by fire that bent inward toward her like it knew her name. Security drones hesitated. Royal guards stopped dead. Because no one crossed Solari fire. No one except a human. Elias Vaughn did not think. Thinking would have slowed him down. He was a maintenance officer, officially. Unofficially, he was the kind of human the galaxy never noticed until things went wrong. No enhanced armor. No royal blood. Just a reinforced worksuit, burned at the edges, and a body shaped by gravity heavier than most alien worlds allowed. When the heat alarms screamed in his visor, he was already moving. "Human, stop," someone shouted in an alien tongue. Elias ignored them and jumped. The heat hit him like a planet falling on his chest. His suit screamed warnings. His skin felt like it was tearing apart molecule by molecule. The fire did not behave like normal flames. It reached, twisted, tested him, as if confused by the fact that he was still moving. Humans were not supposed to survive this. But humans were very good at surviving things they weren't supposed to. Elias slammed onto the platform, smoke pouring from his suit. Lyra stared at him in shock, her luminous gold eyes wide. She had been raised among gods and stars, yet in that moment she looked like a frightened girl trapped in a nightmare. "Run," Elias shouted, coughing. "When I tell you." The Solari fire wrapped around him, reacting to his presence. It fed on fear, on hesitation, on belief. The ancient alien texts said only those of royal flame could pass unharmed. Elias believed none of it. He grabbed a fallen ceremonial spear, drove it into the platform, and slammed his gauntlet into the control node hidden beneath the stone. Human engineering was ugly compared to Solari design, but it had one advantage: it worked even when it shouldn't. The fire flickered. The crowd went silent. Elias felt his nerves burn. His muscles screamed. Every instinct begged him to let go. Instead, he anchored himself and yelled, "Now!" Lyra moved. She ran through the thinning flames as Elias pulled her toward him, shielding her with his own body. The fire lashed out, furious, but it could not decide what Elias was. He was not royal, not chosen, not obedient. The platform collapsed inward as emergency shields finally snapped back online. They fell. The impact shattered the stone below, but Elias wrapped himself around Lyra as they crashed through smoke and heat into the lower chamber. The world went dark. When Elias woke, he expected pain. Instead, he felt floating. Soft light surrounded him, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. His body was wrapped in a translucent healing field, alien symbols flowing across his skin. He tried to move and failed. "Easy," a calm voice said. He turned his head slowly. Princess Lyra sat beside him, unharmed, her ceremonial crown set aside. Her expression was unreadable, not fear, not relief, but something deeper. "You saved me," she said quietly. Elias tried to laugh and immediately regretted it. "Part of the job," he croaked. Her lips curved into something almost like a smile. "No. That fire has killed warriors, champions, even my ancestors. It should have erased you." "Yeah," Elias muttered. "It tried." The doors opened. The room changed instantly. Everyone stood. The Queen of the Solari entered. Queen Merith was older than most civilizations humans had recorded. Her presence bent the air itself. Her eyes, twin suns of controlled power, locked onto Elias like weapons finding a target. She studied him in silence. "You crossed the Solari fire," she said at last. Elias swallowed. Wasn't on my schedule, Your Majesty. A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. No one spoke to the Queen like that. Mareth did not react with anger. She smiled. Human, she said, her voice carrying through the chamber, you have triggered an ancient law older than my throne. Elias frowned. That sounds bad. For you, the Queen replied calmly, it changes everything. She turned to the assembled court, her voice rising, formal and unstoppable. Prepare the palace, Queen Mareth declared. Invoke the covenant of flame. Today, we begin preparations for a royal wedding. The room exploded into stunned silence. Elias stared at her. I'm sorry, what? Lyra looked at him, eyes wide, breathing shallow. The Queen stepped closer, towering over the human who smelled of smoke and defiance. You saved my daughter by claiming her from the fire, Mareth said. By our oldest law, that binds you to her fate. Elias's heart thundered louder than the flames ever had. I didn't agree to that. The Queen's smile widened. The fire already agreed for you. And in that moment, Elias Vaughn realized that charging into impossible flames had been the easy part. The silence after the Queen's declaration felt heavier than the fire itself. Elias lay there, heart pounding, staring at a reality that made no sense. A moment ago, he had been a human technician trying not to die. Now, the most powerful ruler in the Solari Dominion had just announced his wedding like it was a weather report. I didn't ask for this, Elias said slowly, choosing his words with care. I ran into the fire because someone was going to die. That's it. Queen Mareth studied him as if he were a rare equation that refused to balance. Intent is irrelevant, she replied. Action defines destiny. Lyra finally found her voice. Mother, he didn't know. I know, the Queen said calmly. That is why this matters. The medical chamber began to fill. Advisors in layered crystal robes, high priests glowing with embedded sigils, and military commanders wearing armor that hummed with restrained power. None spoke at first. They all stared at Elias. Some with awe, some with fear, some with calculation. A human survived the Solari fire, one priest whispered. That alone is impossible. Elias exhaled. I'm hearing that a lot today. The Queen raised a hand, and the murmurs died instantly. The covenant of flame was forged when our empire nearly tore itself apart. It binds those who save royal blood through fire into unbreakable alliance. It exists to prevent chaos, and to reward courage. Elias frowned. Reward usually doesn't involve forced marriage. A few gasps echoed. Lyra stiffened, clearly expecting punishment. Instead, the Queen laughed. It was not cruel laughter. It was sharp, delighted, and deeply unsettling. You speak boldly for someone still wrapped in healing light, Mareth said. Tell me, human, on your world, do your heroes act only when rewarded? No, Elias replied without hesitation. They act because someone has to. Something shifted in the Queen's gaze. Humans had been part of the Galactic community for barely 2 centuries. Young, loud, fragile-looking. Their worlds lacked ancient monuments and sacred laws. Yet again and again, they did things that made no sense, and somehow changed everything. Your species is inconvenient, Mareth said. You break rules by surviving them. Lyra looked at Elias, really looked at him now. Not as a stranger or a savior, but as someone just as trapped as she was. I won't force you, she said softly. If you refuse, I will stand with you. The chamber froze. No one refused a Solari marriage covenant. Ever. The Queen's eyes flicked to her daughter. You would risk civil fracture for a human. Lyra straightened. I would risk it for justice. Elias closed his eyes briefly. He could walk away. He could become a symbol of rebellion, a spark for political chaos, maybe even war. Humans were already seen as unpredictable. This would make it worse. He opened his eyes. What exactly does this covenant mean? Elias asked. The Queen's smile returned, slower now, approving. It means you are no longer expendable. It means the Solari Dominion is bound to protect you as it would protect my daughter. It means humans gain a voice where they never had one before. That made Elias uneasy. Power always came with a price. And if I say yes, he asked. Then you become something new, Merith replied. A bridge between species. A problem no one can ignore. Lyra met his gaze. There was fear there, but also hope. Elias thought of Earth. Of humans constantly underestimated. Of colonies struggling under alien trade laws. Of human crews dying because someone decided they were acceptable losses. He thought of the fire. Okay, he said quietly. But I'm not your trophy. The Queen inclined her head. Agreed. The announcement traveled faster than light. Within hours, the galaxy knew. A human had crossed sacred alien fire. A human had survived. A human was about to marry into one of the oldest royal bloodlines in known space. Human networks exploded. Some celebrated. Some panicked. Governments demanded explanations. Militaries went on alert. No one understood what it meant yet, only that something irreversible had begun. In a quiet chamber overlooking the city, Lyra stood beside Elias as automated drones adjusted ceremonial garments around them. This isn't how I imagined my life, she admitted. Same, Elias said. I was supposed to fix a coolant relay tomorrow. She laughed softly, surprised by herself. You're afraid. Terrified, he admitted. But humans are good at that too. Being scared and moving forward anyway. Lyra nodded. Then maybe the fire chose well. Outside, the Solari capital knew only one thing for certain. The universe had just learned a dangerous lesson. Humans did not need ancient laws to become part of history. They only needed one moment. And the courage to step into the fire. The galaxy did not react quietly. Within a single rotation of Aurelian Prime, every major network was broadcasting the same image on endless repeat. A human silhouette walking out of alien fire, carrying a Solari princess in his arms. Analysts froze the footage, zoomed in, slowed it down, argued over physics and faith and probability. None of it mattered. What mattered was simple. A human had done what no one else could. On Earth, people watched from overcrowded apartments, military command rooms, and distant frontier colonies. Some felt pride. Some felt fear. Most felt both at once. Humanity had spent generations trying to be taken seriously among the stars. Now the stars were staring back. And they did not know what to do with humans. Elias felt the pressure long before the ceremony arrived. The palace had changed. Guards bowed lower when he passed. Advisors watched him too closely. Some with respect. Others with cold calculation. To them, Elias was no longer just a man. He was leverage. He hated that. Lyra walked beside him through a corridor of living crystal that reshaped itself with every step. You're thinking about leaving, she said. Is it that obvious? Elias replied. You keep measuring exits, she said gently. You do it when you're overwhelmed. He exhaled. On my world, when things get this complicated, someone usually gets hurt. Lyra stopped walking. That's true everywhere. They stood in silence, looking out over the floating city. Starships drifted between towers like slow-moving constellations. It was beautiful. It was fragile. My people believe stability comes from control, Lyra said. From laws older than memory. But you ran into fire without permission. Elias shrugged. Fire doesn't care about permission. She smiled. Exactly. The council chamber was already full when they entered. Representatives from dozens of species watched from elevated platforms. Holograms flickered where physical presence was impossible. The air vibrated with restrained tension. Queen Merith sat at the center, composed and immovable. This council is called to order, she announced. We will address the matter of human Elias Vaughn. Every gaze locked onto him. An avian delegate spoke first. The Solari Covenant was never meant for outsiders. A scaled envoy hissed agreement. If humans gain royal alliance, balance is broken. Elias raised his hand. The chamber froze again. Permission to speak, he said. The Queen nodded once. Elias stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his pulse was not. I didn't plan to change your balance. I didn't even know it existed. I saw someone in danger and acted. That's it. Some delegates scoffed. That simplicity is precisely the threat, one said. Humans act without understanding consequences. Elias met their gaze. No. We understand consequences. We just decide some things are worth them. Silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. A small delegation rose, representatives from minor systems, fringe colonies, species long ignored by the great empires. A crystalline being spoke, its voice resonating like wind through glass. Humans saved our mining world when no one else answered our distress call. Another followed. They defended our trade route without asking for payment. More voices joined. Stories poured out. Not of conquest. Not of domination. But of stubborn, reckless help. The council shifted uneasily. Queen Merith watched it all with unreadable satisfaction. The covenant stands, she declared. But understand this, Elias Vaughn is not property. He is not a weapon. He is not a symbol to be controlled. Her gaze sharpened. He is proof. Proof that ancient laws could bend. Proof that survival did not require permission. Proof that humanity was no longer small. Later, alone on a balcony suspended above the city, Elias leaned against the railing, staring into endless stars. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted quietly. Lyra stood beside him. Neither do I. He glanced at her. Then why aren't you terrified? She was quiet for a moment. I am. But for the first time, the future feels open. Elias nodded slowly. Humans understood that feeling. Across the galaxy, something shifted. Old powers adjusted strategies. New alliances whispered into existence. And in dark corners of space, those who thrived on control began to plan. Because humans had done the unthinkable. They had not conquered the fire. They had ignored it. And that terrified the universe. The first warning came as silence. No alarms. No explosions. Just the sudden absence of background noise that told every experienced spacer the same thing. Something was hunting. Deep beyond Solari-controlled space, a fleet drifted in perfect formation, its hulls dark and angular, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The Car Dominion had watched the ceremony, the council debate, the broadcasts replayed 1,000 times. They did not see a miracle. They saw a vulnerability. The Car believed strength came from fear. From domination. From proving that hope was a lie. Empires rose when others broke. And humans, in their view, were still breakable. The strike did not come at the Solari capital. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it came to a human colony orbiting a dying star. Small, underdefended, and politically inconvenient. A place no ancient power would rush to protect. The colony's distress signal reached Elias while he stood beside Lyra in a training hall, learning how not to offend half the known galaxy with the wrong posture. The message cut through the air like a blade. Multiple unidentified warships. Civilian casualties. Requesting immediate aid. Lyra's face drained of color. Elias was already moving. They're testing us, he said. Testing humans. Testing the Alliance. Queen Merith arrived moments later, her expression cold with understanding. They believe humans are symbolic, she said. They are about to learn otherwise. The Solari fleet was powerful, ancient, precise. Human ships were different. Rougher. Faster to modify. Built by people who expected things to go wrong. Elias stood on the bridge of the joint task vessel, wearing no crown, no ceremonial armor. Just a command harness and a human flag patch stitched onto his sleeve. You don't have to go, Lyra said quietly. This isn't your war. Elias met her eyes. It is when someone targets my people to send a message. The fleet jumped. What followed was chaos. Car ships moved with terrifying coordination, cutting through defensive lines with brutal efficiency. Their weapons targeted power cores, life support, morale. Human ships did something unexpected. They rammed. They rerouted engines into shields. They hacked enemy systems mid-battle using improvised code written by exhausted engineers who refused to lose. They used gravity, debris, even their own damaged hulls as weapons. The car did not understand this. They waited for humans to retreat. Humans advanced instead. Elias coordinated across species, across languages, across fear. He made mistakes. He adapted faster. He trusted people who had no reason to trust him back, and they answered. When the final car command vessel tried to flee, it found its escape vector blocked by a human freighter held together with patchwork plating and stubbornness. The battle ended not with surrender, but with retreat. The colony survived. The message spread faster than any broadcast. Humans were not symbolic. They were relentless. In the aftermath, Elias stood among survivors, burned, shaken, alive. Children stared at him with wide eyes. Colonists clasped his hands. "You came," one whispered. Elias swallowed. "Of course we did." Back at the Solari capital, the galaxy re-evaluated everything it thought it knew. Queen Merith addressed the council again. "The age of testing humanity is over," she said. "Those who threaten them threaten us." No one argued. Lyra found Elias later, watching ships depart under repaired stars. "You changed the equation," she said. "No," Elias replied. "We just showed our work." She took his hand, not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as a person choosing another person. Somewhere in the dark, enemies withdrew to plan again. But they would never forget this lesson. When humans step into the fire, they don't burn. They ignite. The galaxy did not return to normal. It couldn't. Normal had ended the moment a human ran into sacred fire and survived, and everything that followed only confirmed what many had begun to fear and others had begun to hope. Humanity was no longer a question mark. It was a constant. In the weeks after the car retreat, alliances shifted quietly but permanently. Trade routes once closed to human ships reopened. Defense pacts that had stalled for decades suddenly moved forward. Species that had lived under the shadow of stronger empires began to speak more openly. Because they had seen something new. Not domination. Not ancient authority. But choice. Elias Vaughn returned to Aurelian Prime changed in ways no ceremony could capture. His body healed faster than the Solari healers expected. His mind carried the weight of decisions that affected millions. He slept less. Thought more. Yet when he stood beside Lyra on the balcony overlooking the city, the universe felt strangely quiet. "They're calling it the human variable," Lyra said, scrolling through a data display filled with galactic commentary. "A factor no model can predict." Elias smiled faintly. "Sounds about right." She looked at him. "Do you regret it?" He thought about the fire. The colony. The terrified faces that became hopeful ones. "No," he said. "But I understand it now." "Understand what?" "Why humans scare everyone," Elias replied. "We don't wait to be ready. We just act, and deal with the consequences later." Lyra laughed softly. "That may be the most honest explanation I've heard." The wedding was nothing like the galaxy expected. No overwhelming display of power. No forced spectacle. Instead, it was simple. Delegations from dozens of species attended, not out of obligation, but curiosity. Human representatives stood beside alien diplomats as equals. No one pretended the Union solved everything. It didn't. But it started something. When Queen Merith addressed the assembly, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "This union does not bind a human to our throne," she declared. "It binds our future to a species that refuses to abandon hope." She turned her gaze outward. "Let it be known, humanity is no longer an outsider. They are part of the fire that shapes what comes next." Elias felt Lyra's hand tighten in his. He leaned toward her. Still scared? Yes, she said honestly. Good, he replied. Means we're paying attention. Beyond the ceremony, human engineers and alien scientists worked side by side. New ships were designed with hybrid technology. Defense systems prioritized civilian survival over conquest. For the first time, ancient empires listened to people who had once been ignored. Not because humans demanded it, but because humans showed up. In the darkest reaches of space, the car watched and recalculated. They did not attack again, not openly. They learned a painful truth. Breaking humans cost more than it was worth. Years later, children across multiple worlds learned the same story, told differently in every culture, but always ending the same way. A human saw someone in danger. A human ran into the fire. And the universe changed its mind about what was possible. Elias never called himself a hero. He called himself human. And in doing so, he became something far more dangerous to despair than any weapon the galaxy had ever built. Because fires no longer meant endings. They meant beginnings.